And welcome back to another episode of Michigan Postgame Live. My name is John Diadamo, and thank you all for joining us. Rid of that. Michigan, the Wolverines, despite everything, back against the wall, adversity, people saying we couldn't do it. Michigan, for the third straight year in a row, is your Big Ten champion. I am trying to listen in to the coverage of the trophy ceremony. I've got one headphone in. Obviously we can't cover the audio or we'll get demonetized. So we don't want to do that. Got a headphone in. I'm listening into it. So for those of you who, for whatever reason, can't watch it, I'll try to give my live takes on the Tony Petitti, Big Ten commissioner, handing Jim Harbaugh the trophy. How sweet it's going to be. Congratulations to the Michigan Wolverines. Like I said, this is the third straight Big Ten championship win under Jim Harbaugh. First year, 2021, obviously massive tectonic shift in the Big Ten East, with Ohio State having pretty much dominated the Big Ten East and the Big Ten in general until then. Last 3 years, it's been Michigan's turn. Let's start with going to the comments. Yeah, Mike, you're right. You are right. Literally the best part's coming up, I think. I think that's going to be the most exciting part of the whole thing. I don't think Harbaugh's going to flip him off. I think it's going to be more like I think it's going to be barely acknowledging him and then just holding up the trophy. It's going to be very interesting since Petitti's the one that obviously made the decision to suspend him. We do need a month to be ready, and we're gonna go through some of the plays in the game, obviously, while we're waiting for the trophy. Obviously, 26-0. That's a really good score. But within that, I think that we would all agree there are some things that we need to shore up. If you're going to play against a team called Washington, you're going to face a team called, potentially Texas, potentially Alabama. Those are very difficult opponents, and you're not going to be able to, drop balls. You're not going to be able to get sacked that many times. It's just not good. But let's just go through it. I'm going to start with this take. Goodbye and good riddance to divisions. Now that the game's over, I can say this. I was trying to be respectful to Iowa. I was trying to give them their due. They did all the credit to their defense. Their defense and their punter played lights out today. And I'm not joking. They did. They tried to limit Michigan to limited yards. I would argue that was a better defense. When they're on their A game, they're a better defense than Ohio State. When they're on their A game, they're a better defense than Ohio State. I believe that. I think that was the best defensive performance we've seen all season, other than Michigan's, right? But this is kind of a rant a little. The Big Ten West is a joke. It's been a joke. This was long overdue. And I'm sorry, but Brian Ferentz should have been fired a year ago. No excuse. When you have this good a defense, this good special teams, should have gotten an offensive coordinator that knows what they're doing. I mean, shit, Paul Chryst was available. Like, if nothing else, Paul Chryst was available. And he could have done it. No excuse there. We call it McDonald's Funhouse for a reason. Illinois did have a stretch where they were really good last year. almost beat Michigan when they were healthy. The problem is they couldn't stay healthy, or they would have easily been the Big Ten West champ. But every single game pretty much has been lopsided, especially the last couple of years. I, for one, am extremely excited to get rid of divisions. Let's have the two best teams play for the championship. It really should have been Ohio State and Indy. I mean, if we're being really honest with each other, it should have been Ohio State. And in this case, it wasn't. And obviously, we kind of got robbed of Cade McNamara, Eric All, Luke Lachey, Cooper DeJean. That would have at least made it a more exciting game, closer to like what Purdue was last year, Michigan Purdue. That was a really good game up until halfway through the third quarter. That was an extremely tight ball game. But at the end of the day, goodbye Big Ten divisions and good riddance. Because I just think it's a joke. And honestly, I think the Big Ten deserves to have the two best teams play against each other. And that's what we're going to see starting next year. And perfect timing, too, because USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington are all coming in. So we're going to have some epic matchups in the Big Ten championship. Samaj Morgan is getting his kudos, which is good. Obviously, he had an amazing 84-yard return, which we'll talk about. The biggest take for me is that Michigan out Iowa'd Iowa. Okay. What does that mean? That means that let's be honest. The offense, the play calling today was very vanilla. And we've said like Michigan game plan this like they would against Minnesota, like they would against Rutgers, like they would against Indiana. And the reality of it is, that's what it deserved. I hate to tell you. Do I think that they had plays on reserve in case Iowa somehow took the lead? Yes, I do. Do I think they had some razzle-dazzle saved? Yes, I do. Now they've saved it for the playoff, which is good because you're going to need it against a team like Washington. But at the end of the day, Michigan's defense played lights out. So any offensive shortcomings that were had, the defense played absolutely lights out. So I'm gonna kind of give the Leaders and Best Award to Jim Harbaugh. Made the right decisions, I thought. People were upset because he went for it on 4th and 1. The center got injured. The center got banged up the play before. That's why he did it. Otherwise, he would have gone for it because it was 4th and 1, and it was pretty. I think it was like on our 25 or roughly our 25. Normally Harbaugh goes for that. He had gone for a 4th and 7, and much further back, not that long ago. It was because our center got banged up. He called it, him and Sharon Moore. I think he just kept it very vanilla. Give him his props for what he did against Ohio State, no doubt. But I think in this game, Jim Harbaugh showed, great head coaching, and Jesse Minter just lights out in terms of what he was able to do. You can't let JJ take so many sacks, and some of that's on him. Okay, I'm hoping that a big point of emphasis in the in this couple of weeks ahead of practice, of probably some hanging out in people's backyards and slinging the ball around when there's not official practice, whatever they want to do. One thing that I'm hoping JJ practices is throwing the ball away. Like, I know you want to make plays, man, but you got to sometimes throw the ball away. Okay? All the greatest quarterbacks occasionally have to do that. Even Patrick Mahomes occasionally has to throw a ball away. Like, you can't take a sack. And here we go. Trophy ceremony. Here we go. Okay, we're thanking the sponsors. It's always something it's probably built in contractually, like Discover gets 15 seconds. Here comes Tony Petitti. Oh, wow. So so Petitti gave the trophy to Zach Zinner because he didn't want to have to give it to Harbaugh. Is that what just happened? And then he quickly went off the field. Wow. What a cowardly display. I mean, okay. Zach Zinner, if there's one player I would pick to do that, absolutely Zach Zinner. But this was very obviously coordinated because Petitti did not want to have to give Harbaugh the trophy. No coach that could have it better. Yeah, I mean, we've heard like, we know what this is, the Harbaugh speech. I am just dumbfounded right now with what, like, I know that there were some reports that Petitti wasn't even going to be there to give the trophy at all. And what a cowardly move to do that. Wow. And of course, Archie Griffin's going to get some booing. With Michigan, with all the Michigan fans here. But very cool. Mikey Sanders still just got the MVP. Very well deserved. That guy, he plays out of his mind. Good for him. But I'm just, wow. Let's continue to get instant reactions. Well, I mean, it's an awkward situation, because obviously Tony Petitti was the one that handed down the punishment and was probably hoping Ohio State would win, so he didn't have to deal with this. But Tony Petitti basically was on the dais for about 5 seconds, quickly handed that thing to Zach Zinner as fast as he possibly could, and then scampered off like a rat in the desert. It's beautiful. I mean, that's the type of reaction I expected. I expected something like that to happen. It is what it is. Look, Michigan won for the 3rd straight year. Congratulations to the Michigan Wolverines. And there are players on this team. All they know is winning. All they know is beating Ohio State. No one on this team now, except like Michael Barrett. There's like 4 people who were on the team the last time Ohio State won. And it was like Michael Barrett and a couple others. But great job. let's start diving in more to the game. I'm not going to be on for that long. I want to send everybody over to the big call-in show that Mark Rogers does on the main channel. But if you are coming in here, hit the like button. And if you missed it, the first thing I said was goodbye and good riddance divisions. I think the Big Ten looks very silly, putting a team like Iowa, who doesn't have an offense, against Michigan, Ohio State in the East. It makes us look lesser than we are, and I'm excited that next year divisions are going away. Michigan out Iowa. That's absolutely what happened. The offense wasn't what it needed to be, in my opinion. But I think that they came in with a very clear game plan, and the game plan was to pound the rock up the middle, occasionally do a perimeter run, a little bit of play action here and there, there was an end around, and a few like short passes, out routes, fades. Not a lot of, maybe one deep shot attempt all night. They clearly knew they didn't have it. Phil Parker, though, they played some double high safety. Clearly was scheming to prevent the big play. Phil Parker's defense, give him all the credit in terms of limiting what Michigan could do. Michigan didn't execute their best either, but Phil Parker deserves a much better offense than than his team has. And I really hope that they get an offensive coordinator that's worthy of having a defense at that elite level, because I believe I think Iowa, if they didn't have the worst offensive coordinator in all of football, and they actually had let's just say a Penn State level offense, they'd be a playoff contender, 100%. I gave the Coaches, Leaders, and Best Award to Jim Harbaugh and Jesse Minter. I thought Jim Harbaugh made the right decisions at the right times, and Jesse Minter's defense was out of this world. But you can't let JJ take so many sacks. And part of that is O-line and making, obviously with Barnhart going to right guard, Trente Jones going to right tackle. They're now going to get a month of practices to basically gel and get together, because you can't let JJ take that many sacks. And Washington has a defense. It's probably not quite as good as Iowa's, but it's still really good. And JJ's got to throw that freaking ball away. Looks like everybody's talking about the playoff, which we will cover a little, but Mark Rogers is going to be talking about it on the main channel. Let me see if he is live, actually. Looks like it's upcoming. I think he's waiting for the post-game shows to finish. So that's always great when he does that. Let's go over offense, leaders, and best awards. I'm going to call it offense/special teams. Samaj Morgan, 84-yard return. Beautiful. He is a player that I think is going to make a lot of waves next year, and we've started to see what he can do. Blake Corum, one away from the Michigan all-time touchdown record. There is somebody who's higher, but I think it was from before they started counting the statistics, like the 20s. There was somebody who was higher. But that was a whole different type of football anyway. I can see why they don't count that. So anyway, he's one away. He'll probably get it in the playoff game, which he's going to be in. And it'll be nice to have Blake Corum in the playoff game. On defense, defense was strong on both teams. Again, made more plays. They were just more talented. They were just they did more. They wanted it more. And and they knew that they needed to make up for kind of an anemic offense. So they caused 3 turnovers. I'm awarding the defense leaders and best to Mikey Sanderstill and Chris Jenkins. Obviously, just really impressive there. Braden McGregor also was another one who was really, really good today. Harrell had a sack. Everybody participated in some way, but really impressive performance. And Mike Sanderstill all season has just been money. Moving him to the defense is one of the best things Harbaugh's ever done. It was a really good move. And, he said, "Hey, Mikey, what you think about defense?" And Mike said, "Coach, whatever I need to do for the team, whatever will allow me to play, let's do it." Taking some comments here. A bit disappointed with the offensive line. I get the injury to Zinner, but they have to be better to advance in the CFP. You're right. I do think, though, that this was the overall game plan was very strategic in terms of treating Iowa the way that they deserve to be treated. All respect, obviously, to their defense. Obviously, we have a lot of friends who are Iowa fans and people in the community that are Iowa fans. But if we're being really honest, they were treated like they should be, which is they have an offense that's Indiana level. They have an offense that's Illinois level. That's Purdue level. So you don't need to get fancy. You don't need to call a double pass. You don't need to, do a ton in terms of attacking the perimeter. You just don't. Michigan's defense is good enough to stop Deacon Hill. And it showed that because we went 26-0. And if I look at the stats, which should be up by now on ESPN, we'll look at the box score. Deacon Hill had no touchdowns, 18 for 32, 120 yards. And frankly, J.J. McCarthy had a very similar stat line. This was a defensive game, and this was a rushing game way more than it was anything else. Michigan won the rushing battle 66-35. Obviously, more receiving yards, 147 to 120. But this was all defense, and the 3 fumbles and obviously turnovers. James Turner went 4 for 4 on field goals with a 50-yarder. So that was really strong. Tommy Doman with 6 punts. Most of them were really good. 54-yard was his longest. So kicking and punting was huge. It was a field position game. Absolutely, Marcus, it was. Is that the type of game I expected to see? Yeah, absolutely. Did you guys expect that Michigan was just going to steamroll this team and how good their defense is? No, I didn't. Did I think there were going to be as many drops? No. Both can be true. But I expected it to be like this. I called a score of 34-10 was my prediction. 34-10, and the actual score was 26-0. So yeah, I didn't think that Michigan was going to steamroll this team. And I think that Iowa has a better defense than the other best team that's going to be in the playoff, which is Washington, because I don't think Bama's going to get in. I don't. Let's see. Thank you, Mike Rotunda. Defense balled tonight. Special teams played big. It was a tough Big Ten type game. Yes, it was. Yeah, but like I said, this is what I expected. But I also expected that Michigan would have a couple more big plays than they did. I think that can also be true. If you can please like this video, subscribe, and share with a friend. We've got almost 200 people on viewing, so let's make sure if we have 200 people viewing, we have 200 likes. Thanks so much, because that'll really help us, and obviously subscribe to Michigan Football, the voice of college football. Going through obviously the stat line showed not much offense today, and a lot of defensive maneuvers and special teams. If I go through my notes and look at anything that I think is obviously Deacon Hill, is just not a very good quarterback. Caleb Johnson had a couple of semi-decent runs. Caleb Brown was probably their best player on the offense. Not saying a lot, but when Brian Hartline coaches you and recruits you, that means something. And I'm kind of surprised it took them so long to feature him in the offense like they did. AJ Barner had a decent catch. Khalil Mullings, Blake Corum is obviously the feature back for us, but Khalil Mullings got one in. Donovan Edwards with his catching. What are we going to do next year when Blake Corum's gone? I don't know. Because can Khalil take over that position? We'll see. I think he's being groomed to take over that position. A lot of 8-yard routes, 10-yard routes to Cornelius Johnson. Cornelius was actually more of a feature back than Wilson, which I was pretty surprised about in terms of the wide receivers. I think that's because Iowa covered Roman Wilson a lot. They know that Roman Wilson is the big play back. It's the same that teams do to Marvin Harrison Jr. Same thing. So CJ got a lot of looks, as did Peyton O'Leary got one. Obviously Loveland and Barner both got attempts, but some rare drops from them, which was kind of shocking. Alex Orji got a chance to do a run package there. 5 yards, not a ton after halftime. Definitely some good use of motion. There was one throw with Roman Wilson where Wilson was in motion. They used movement to create space. Then they went with an end around, which went nowhere, as they have been. I think they just need to kill that. It's not really doing anything. Had some I formation. But again, the big takeaways are they didn't have a lot of the usual motion plays in space because they didn't need to. You saw a couple. I pointed them out, but they didn't need to do that because they knew that Michigan's defense could stop Iowa's offense, which did very, very effectively. And the fact is, Michigan's good enough to overcome, only having 66 rushing yards and 147 yards in the air. They're good enough to overcome that. Iowa didn't have much fewer, 35 rushing yards and 120 in the air. But Michigan out-talented them, out-physicaled them, and just out-schemed them. Before we complete, let's go ahead and tackle the discussion about playoffs. I actually don't think it's much of a discussion. I don't. Somebody had it. I think somebody had the score. Michigan 1, Washington 2, Georgia 3. Wait, what? Georgia? No. You mean Bama, right? Okay. I was with you till you said, okay, Bama 3, FSU 4 is probably, but also, wait a minute. What about Texas? I think it's going to be this. Sorry, I'm a little tired. Michigan 1, Washington 2, Texas 3, or FSU 3, and then the other one 4. They're probably going to put FSU above Texas because of the fact that Texas has a loss. I mean, that would make logical sense, right? So let me put that prediction in right now. Let's see here. Playoff prediction. Michigan 2, Washington 3, FSU 4, Texas. That's my playoff prediction. It's not pretty. FSU barely beat Louisville, but they did beat them, so they're undefeated, so they're in. Texas has a loss. Washington, also undefeated, looked really good against a very good Oregon team. And Michigan, by default, is number 1. Best win in the country against Ohio State. Won their conference championship, has beat everybody on their schedule, with 1 or 2 exceptions, very decisively. Michigan should be the definitive number 1. When you're undefeated out of the Big Ten East, I think that they look at that. Georgia would have been 1 if they had beat Alabama. There is a cynical fan that says Alabama gets in no matter what because the SEC is funded by the ESPN and obviously they have a big stake in the college football playoff. That's the tinfoil hat theory. But you also have to remember Texas is about to join the SEC. So if we're going to go there and we're going to talk about conspiracy, well, Texas is about to become an SEC member. So they might do that. They might just say, you know what, Texas is about to be an SEC member, close enough. Moose puts Bama in over. Well, remember, Moose, they said head-to-head is important. So Texas beat Alabama at Alabama pretty decisively. I don't really see that happening. But it's possible. But Texas won very decisively in their bowl game. So you're leaving. So yeah, it's leaving Texas out. Meanwhile, AK Post says FSU is going to get. So you're going to leave out a 13-0 conference champion, Power 5. It's never been done before in a Power 5. UCF was left out, but they weren't Power 5 at the time. And I'm sure there was another example, but UCF 2017 was 13-0 as well, and were left out. But I don't think they're going to leave out a 13-0 conference champion. But they're gonna try to leave. They're gonna try to put Bama in, but I just don't think they can. I just don't think they can. If they're gonna follow their own logic, Bama has a loss to Texas, so head to head. If it wasn't for that, we might have a different story. But I don't see a universe in which Alabama gets put in and Texas gets left out. Now, this one has Texas and Alabama, but I don't see FSU at undefeated getting left out. So that's why I'm saying this. Michigan 1, Washington 2, FSU 3, Texas 4. Michigan plays Texas. Washington would play FSU. But is that the most interesting? Is that the most ratings inducing? Michigan, Texas is for sure. Washington, FSU. So if you're going by ratings and eyeballs, which technically shouldn't be part of it, but you know they're going to factor that in, maybe FSU does get left out and Bama gets put in. I don't know. It's going to be tough because Washington FSU sounds kind of boring, honestly. I think Washington would steamroll FSU. But yeah, I mean, that's what it should be. If you don't factor in ratings, money, excitement, do I think that these are the 4 best teams? No. Do I think that these are the 4 most deserving teams? Yes. But Alabama's one of the 4 best teams in the country. I believe that. And I'm not an SEC homer. But this is a year where we should have the 12-team playoff. I would love it because we have a lot of teams that would, I think, do very well. Anyway, y'all, let's bask in this. Break out whatever beverage you're going to go for because Michigan has defeated Iowa 26-0. Michigan also won the de facto Big Ten championship last week by beating Ohio State, which many would call the real Big Ten championship. Somehow just feels more like that game felt like the real one. This feels like it was expected, like if I would somehow pulled this off, that would have been a real freaking disappointment. Did anybody here see Game Day and Corso and Pat McAfee and the guest picker all picked Iowa to beat Michigan straight up? And I tweeted about this and I said, if Harbaugh was smart, he'd take that screenshot, print it out, put it all over the place, put it on the monitors as fuel for the fire because people are picking Iowa straight up to beat Michigan. And I don't know if they were doing it just because they don't like Michigan or if they were doing it, to get eyeballs or what. But Dez and Kirk, especially Kirk, Herb Street, he follows this sport closer than a lot of people do. He's got to cover these games. He's jet setting all over the country covering these games. He's studying it closely. I don't think he would ever pick Iowa, right? And I think you got to bring David Pollock back, and you got to kick out some people because I think it's getting to be a little bit buffoonery going on in College Game Day. Let's see here. Thank you, Dependent Fanatic, for always being here, and thank everybody who has stayed with us all season long here at Michigan Football, the voice of college football. What a ride has it been. And it had to end with Tony Petitti cowardly giving the trophy to a Michigan player instead of giving it to Harbaugh, which I'm sure was choreographed, and they figured out a compromise of, okay, we'll honor Zach Zinner by giving him the trophy. I actually don't hate that idea. If you're going to be cowardly and you're going to give the trophy to somebody who isn't Harbaugh, Zach Zinner is the person you give it to. I don't hate it. And it's very Harbaugh to be willing to give it to him, too. Like, that's a very Harbaugh thing to agree to as well. You know, he's all about giving players the spotlight. Yep. Hey, we got Travis Scott in here. We got a celebrity. I'm guessing it's not the Travis Scott, but thank you for joining us. And yeah, you can't, but maybe I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of money in putting Alabama in this. I think they wanted to put Alabama in last time, but they just couldn't with 2 losses. Well, Vaughn, I have good news, because Michigan this past offseason instituted something called a Beat Georgia drill, which everybody loved. But now's where because they've been prepping all season long for this. We have a super chat, and that is the best way to get your comment or question on air, is to send us a super chat. So thank you, The Bull Will Win, for your super chat. How do you feel about our offensive line? Looking thin, hoping we get healthy. Offensive line is one of the toughest position groups to manage and to coach. Sharon Moore's had to do triple duty, as we know. If an offensive line isn't gelling, it messes up everything. Even before Zach Zinner went down, there was that question about Barnhart. Was he the right person for that position, or was Trente the right position? Barnhart had gotten cooked late in the season against pass rush, especially against Penn State. And then Zach Zinner gets injured in a horrific injury, but one of the most amazing chants. And obviously, our friend Tanner Wooten was at the stadium at the Big House and just talked about how incredible it was. And then obviously Corum goes for that touchdown right after. Putting Barnhart at right guard and Trente at right tackle, I don't hate that move. If Drake Nugent is healthy at the end of December, and Barnhart and Trente in practice play well against the Michigan defense, I'm okay with that. Rolling with that for the playoff. Zach Zinner is probably done and going to the NFL. I don't think he's coming back for the playoff with the tibial and fibula injury, needing surgery on it. I think he's probably going to the NFL. But you also have to remember that they didn't scheme to take pressure off the O-line, because they schemed a heavy running game today and heavy short yardage passing, and you didn't see a lot of screens. You didn't see a lot of things to take pressure off. And that was also part of it. Like, if you watch the Ohio State game, they were doing all kinds of motion, pre-snap motion, misdirection. There were only a couple of plays like that today. So the O-line got hit harder, and obviously with Barnhart at right guard and Trente at right tackle, Barnhart hasn't practiced at right guard much, so it was kind of a patch job. So I would say the playoff game is going to look extremely different to what we saw today. It's going to look a lot closer to what we saw against Ohio State and against first half Penn State, with some new wrinkles that we haven't even seen yet. Because we haven't really seen a lot of Blake and Donovan in the backfield. I think there was one play today that had them. We haven't seen a lot of Blake and Donovan in the backfield. Alex Orji got one running play today. Donovan Edwards didn't throw the ball at all. There's wrinkles that have only been used once this season that we'll see again in the playoffs, and wrinkles that we haven't seen at all. Harbaugh said there were 3 plays that he didn't play against Ohio State. So there are plays left and more that they'll draw up for the playoffs. But thank you for your contribution. Okay, Mark is about to get started on the main channel. So without further ado, Cohen, you have been doom posting the whole night. Like, are you a Michigan fan or are you a fan of someone else? They will get pounded by Bama or Texas. I don't think so. Not this year. Not with this veteran team. I don't think so. I think they'd both be low scoring. Do I think Bama or Texas could beat Michigan? Yeah. Do I think that they're going to pound Michigan? No. Because the game plan that you saw today is not the game plan you'd see against them. And I don't think Texas has a defense like Iowa. Bama, maybe. Texas, no. Yeah, let us know what type of fan you are. Because I'm pretty sure not a Michigan fan. Let's see. Michigan, thank you, Dependent Fanatic. Michigan got the job done with the least resistance, in and out and on to the playoff. You got the job done, absolutely. And with not a lot of offense, right? 66 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground, 147 receiving yards. Iowa had similar numbers. Neither quarterback played amazing. JJ's completion percentage was pretty good, but big deal. It was 147 yards. I don't think he played particularly well tonight, but I think part of that was the O-line. But he needs to let balls go. He needs to throw balls away. He has to. He has to. I don't know what he has to do for them to drill that into his head, that occasionally you throw a ball away to avoid a sack to take you back 15 yards. Just sometimes you got to throw the freaking ball away. And yes, 26-0. And that's a bad game for Michigan. It's just beautiful. This is a bad game for Michigan, and they won the Big Ten championship, and they stomped another the Big Ten West champion. Like, how lucky are we? Who's got it better than us? Chat, let me ask you this question. Who's got it better than us? I'll wait. There it is. Nobody. Who's got it better than us? Nobody. Well, yeah, I mean, so I don't think the people that are doing negativity, I think a lot of them are fans of other teams. Because you and I were being critical during the game, Moose, that there are things that they need to shore up, right? Loveland and Barner can't be dropping balls like that, right? There are things that we need to shore up. But on the whole, third year in a row, Big Ten championship, I'm not going to apologize for a win. And we're especially not going to apologize for a 26-0 win. Yeah, penalties. I mean, there are things. There are things. And is this the type of game you want to see after you just saw that offensive like barn burner game against Washington and Oregon? No. I mean, I watched that game and I'm like, oh shit. But then I looked deeper. Their lines are small. Washington's O-line's small. They're in the trenches. They're going to have problems against Michigan's defense if it's a Michigan-Washington playoff game. So I think they're live. I think they're over on the Iowa channel if you want to watch Corey and let's be respectful. Coach Patterson, let's be respectful. Longtime coach, knows a lot about football. Yeah, the fumble, okay. I'm going to agree that was a generous call. And Michigan doesn't get calls like, Michigan never used to get calls like that. Michigan got a call like that because they're now the Ohio State. Ohio State used to get calls like that when they were the king of the conference. Michigan's the king of the conference. Occasionally you get a call that goes your way. That fumble, probably a call that goes Michigan's way, ruling that that's Michigan's ball. Vaughn Mitchell, can our wide receivers get separation on the playoff team? So the play design today was very 101. I called out the couple of plays that had motion. There was one to Roman Wilson that they motioned him out. They didn't use a lot of pre-snap motion today. That was very basic. Run up the gut with Blake Corum. Short passes for like 5 to 7 yards to a tight end. Cornelius Johnson, 11-yarder. When you do that, it's harder to get separation when the defense can get set. They can get a line. They can match up better. Against Washington, guarantee you're going to see a lot more pre-snap motion. You're going to see a lot more Loveland in motion, Roman Wilson in motion, maybe both. You're going to see people in the backfield that you don't normally see. I could see Donovan and Blake both being in the backfield at the same time. All kinds of things that are going to confuse defenses, which help get separation, which help, more sophisticated routes. Did you see a lot of scissor concepts today? No. Did you see a lot of, concepts that were different, unique? No. Right? None of that helps with separation. Roman Wilson can get separation. And he doesn't even need much. We saw against Ohio State that JJ was able to get it to him, and he didn't really have any separation. He had two defenders right on him, but JJ studied the film and knew that the one defender didn't look at the opposing quarterback in that situation. JJ read the film, and then he read the coverage, and he was able to get it to Roman Wilson. So might not even need it all the time, but it's also play design. So I would look back at the Ohio State game plan, and I would expect more of that. But thank you, Vaughn, for the super chat. We really appreciate it. Mark is going live, so we're going to ask everybody now to head on over to Mark Rogers, Voice of College Football, main call-in show, and just let him know that John sent you from the Michigan show. Do that for me. Get some, just so that they know that Wolverine Nation's coming. Let me put that right on the screen here. Just a reminder, you can also, I do some other shows. Monday night, we do a show called The Ocho on Big Ten Live. So 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern is The Ocho, where we have a Voice of College Football community that all chime in. And so we'll be talking about, obviously, the Big Ten championship game primarily. And other things going on. We'll probably start talking more recruiting again now that the season's wrapping up. Other things that I think are interesting, we'll start talking matchups and everything for next year as well. We have 4 new schools joining the Big Ten, so that's exciting. Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, will be Michigan Wolverines live. Final comments before we move on. Yeah, lots of routes. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think that they'll do a lot more. Michigan does a lot of like pin and pulls. They do a lot of in the run game. In the pass game, we've definitely seen like Cornelius Johnson run. Obviously in that Ohio State game, run a good route and like things like that to get separation. I think you're going to see a lot more unique. Oh, are we missing DeReal? Okay, we better get over there. We can't miss DeReal. Talk about how maybe there won't be an SEC team in the playoff. So there we go. Here's the link. Let's get on over to Mark Rogers, Voice of College Football main channel for the call-in show. Live now on the main channel. Let him know John sent you. Wolverine Nation representing over there. And until next time, thank you for joining Michigan Postgame Live this season. I'll do a show for the playoff game as well. So we'll do a postgame live for the playoff game. Unless I have New Year's Eve plans, because it's New Year. I'm pretty sure it's New Year's Eve. If I have New Year's Eve plans, I'll do a video after. But either way, we'll do stuff all leading up to the playoff game. Whoever we're matched up with, I'll bring on media members and we'll do it all. It'll be very exciting. All right, y'all. Lego. Let's head over to the main channel. Thanks again, John Diadamo saying, "Go Blue! It's good to be the champion."